The bus boycott was triggered by Rosa Parks. The bus boycott itself was on the Monday of Rosa Parks' trial. There were thousands of blacks that refused to take the buses that day, which was really big because a lot of African Americans took the bus to their jobs and such. And it had a pretty big impact because it triggered more events to happen. The event itself didn't really have that big of an impact, but it did cause other things to happen that had big impacts. The Ink for Jack movement was a protest by a bunch of different civil rights groups all working together. They all wrote to the White House protesting against the president's slowness for eliminating the racial discrimination in the country. And Kennedy recognized the people's claims, but he couldn't act upon the issues at the time because he didn't really have that good of control of the Supreme Court or the Southern legislators. So that would have been an issue for him. Freedom Summer was in 1964. It was an African American voter registration movement in Mississippi. It had a really big negative impact because there were so many whites opposed to the idea, and there were many threats of violence. And it ended up increasing division to the people who were involved in the civil rights movement that believed in integration and non-violent matters, and those who believed in it couldn't be solved by non-violent means. Freedom Riders were civil rights activists that rode interstate buses into still segregated southern United States. Many times they were met with violence by white southerners, such as slashing the tires or beatings and many fire bombings. The impact was pretty significant across the country because it inspired other blacks to join the movement and in a way forced Kennedy's hand into action. The March on Washington was a large rally of 200,000 Americans in Washington, D.C., organized by civil rights groups and religious groups. The purpose was to inform about political and social issues that the blacks faced in the country. It's pretty famous because MLK gave his I Have a Dream speech. It had a really positive effect on the country because it instilled hope that whites and blacks could work together and work for racial equality. Bloody Selma, there were 3 marches that took place from Selma to Montgomery. The activists marched a 54-mile highway to show the desire of the African Americans to participate in their constitutional right to vote, in defiance of segregationist oppression. The first march ended really badly because the marchers were assaulted by state troopers and civilians that joined in. They were beaten with clubs and gassed. The authorities of the state beat the woman that started it, then took pictures to publicly display what would happen. It raised awareness because of MLK's participation, and later that year the Voting Rights Act was passed.